Okay, I think I am live, which is exciting. Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha Edmonds. This is my dog, Scholar. He's joining us for the reading tonight. So this is Poets in Pajamas reading series number 43. I was instructed to give everyone a few minutes before I just launch into reading. So I'm just gonna chat a little while. These are my pajamas. I thought about buying new ones, but elected not to for authenticity's sake. Though you'll find that my NASA shirt's a little spot on for the reading tonight. So that'll be fine. I don't know how to tell who's joined. Oh, look, people are here. Hi. Hi, Anna. Hi, Sean. That's not gonna work. Scarlett, come here. Okay, Scholar has left the video. He's no longer playing. Scholar, quiet. Oh, he's quiet all day long. And then you turn on a recording device, right? That's how that goes. I'm going to wait for him to calm down, but I'm still going to give him a few minutes. It's just now 7. So I'm weirdly nervous. I'm more nervous than I am when I give a reading in person, I think, because this one feels like I'm by myself, but I'm not. I'm really glad to be here. Hi, Anna. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I hope he stops. I think he will. I don't know why he's doing this. Scholar, be quiet. Thank you. You know, it's not like you're making sounds. He's used to me just blabbering all day. He's a little high-strung, all the time, but especially right now because a man just came to my door, a maintenance man, because my hot water heater started leaking spontaneously into the base of the apartment below mine, and so Scholar's all jazzed up because someone just showed up at the door, and he came in. It was 20 to 7, and he was like, "Oh, I need to do some work on your heater," and I was like, "Oh, I have a thing at 7." You know, and I was like, I guess he's gonna just have to listen to me read some stories and poems. But he didn't have the part, so he's gonna come back in the morning. But that's maybe why my dog's all jazzed up. Hi everyone, I see you coming in. This is so exciting. Hi Chloe. This is so weird and so cool. Technology really freaks me out. I'm reading. I'll say more about it when I actually start. I'm reading about space tonight, but I also write a lot about robots, and I already have regrets because this technology is unreal. This delay I was also warned about. It seems like it's a big deal. I don't know how long to wait. I showed you my dog. He already made a scene. I've got a bird over there who usually screams every time I talk, but I've got him covered up. I have a cat in the bedroom who may or may not come out at some point and walk across the keyboard, as cats do. Got a lot of animals here. Got a lot of plants here, but it's cool to be in my pajamas and still be connected to all of you. I've been live for about 4 minutes. I think I'm going to give it maybe 1 minute more. That's what I always do to my students too. Oh, hi, Allison. Just saw your comment. So Allison said that she liked my reading on Thursday and said 2 readings in 1 week. Yay. And I should warn all of you who were there on Thursday that I'm reading the exact same thing. So you will have to hear it again. I hope that there's not too much overlap, though I appreciate all my friends being here and listening to the same thing from me twice. I have a little bit more time to read tonight than I did on Thursday, so there's a few more, but a lot of you might be hearing some repeats, and I'm a little sorry about that. I'm reading, I think I'll start talking about it, and that will still give me a couple minutes before I actually start reading, but I'm going to be reading excerpts of a story that I call, or excerpts of a piece of mine called The Space Poet. And I've always called it a story in vignettes. but smarter people than I have called them poems, which is why I wanted to read it tonight, since it's poetry in pajamas. And I really appreciate that I was able to do this and able to give a reading despite being mostly a fiction writer. So this is the most poetry-like thing I have, which is why I'm reading it again. But I'm really sorry to all of you that have to like listen to it twice. I'm really grateful to you as well. So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from it. Each vignette has its own like subtitle or regular title if you think about them as individual poems, which I think is pretty clear. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. We've been live for about 5 minutes. And I see a bunch of you are here, so I'm so glad that you're here. This is really exciting. Before I begin, there are 2 epigraphs to this this piece that I think are really important that I would like to read, since I've got the time and space to do so. So the first one is from Amber Sparks, the janitor in space, and it's: the space station staff liked her when they interviewed her, but had one question: will you be lonely in space? Yes, she said, but I have always been lonely. We don't have a word, oh, excuse me. The second epigraph is from Marina Keegan. We don't have a word for the opposite of loneliness, but if we did, I could say that's what I want in life. All right, so this is the space poet. The habitable zone, or Goldilocks and the 3 planets. In May 2016, a telescope in Chile located 3 planets outside the solar system, which was the same month the Earth poet applied for the space poet position, the same month the girl told the poet she loved her, the first month they had sex, and the first month the space poet didn't say, I love you, back. Then 9 months later, 2 days before the space poet left Earth, the Spitzer telescope confirmed those 3 planets and found 5 more and named it the TRAPPIST-1 exoplanet system. And that was the same week the Earth poet completed her space training, the last week she had sex with the girl, and the last week she didn't say, I love you. And now the space station is buzzing with possibility. 3 planets fall in the habitable zone, defined by NASA as the range of distance from a star where a terrestrial planet is most likely to harbor the building blocks of life, such as appropriate temperature, surface pressure, an atmosphere of oxygen, methane, ozone, carbon dioxide. Defined by the space poet as the distance from home, 40 years of light, as the distance where it's impossible to travel there and back in a lifetime, the distance from God and an Ohio family and the girl she never said, I love you to. The habitable zone defined as not here, defined as the distance from the star where water is most likely to exist in liquid form, too close evaporates, too far freezes. And now NASA is Goldilocks, and now she is wishing science moved as fast as fairy tales, and now it's NASA's first chance and the space poet's last to life beyond Earth and the one that's just right. Liftoff. There have been over 24 astronauts from Ohio, more than any other state, including Neil Armstrong, not to mention the Wright brothers and the invention of flight. Once, someone on the internet included this fact alongside a picture of an Ohio highway, corn, corn, cows, corn, hell is real sign, with a photoshopped astronaut sitting on a suitcase. The caption said, what is it about your state that makes people want to flee the Earth? For the space poet, leaving wasn't about Ohio. No, it was, like everything else, about the girl she was leaving, the girl she didn't want to leave, would rather leave than bring home to meet her family, Pentecostal parents, corn, cows, church crosses, hell is real. The girl whose kisses felt like being in 0 gravity even before the space poet had left orbit, so that during takeoff, when the pressure of acceleration on her body was building, 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 like the weight of another body on her heart, like lying on her back and trying to swallow, like the feeling in her chest during the roundup ride at the county fair, which pins you to the side of a giant wheel and holds you there so heavy you can't peel yourself off. While that was happening, the space poet was already prepared for the feeling of 1 minute you are struggling with all of this weight on your chest, the next you are floating free in your chair, and the space poet is ready, so ready to be free. How to train your astronauts. Augie, says the space poet, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an astronaut. I'm not cut out for this. And Augie, an engineer and pilot, replies, nonsense, of course this is where she belongs. She had the uniform, didn't she? She went through the same training, didn't she? So maybe she wasn't here to conduct experiments or study microgravity or repair the space station. But you know what? She did the survival lessons, the first aid, the psychology class, the geology course, and the public speaking. And she may not be able to operate a spacecraft or do advanced calculus or repair a robot, but she was an artist, the first in space, sent here because, according to ground control, survival is insufficient. Which, by the way, ground control didn't make that up. That's from Star Trek, says Augie, who should know, since he's only an astronaut because of Captain Kirk. There is so much more to space than science, he tells the space poet. And of course she belongs here, because, after all, didn't she learn to speak Russian, just like the rest of them? Microgravity Part 2. Part 1 did not make it into this excerpt. The space poet has taken gravity for granted. Imagine living in a place where you could never put anything down. If you do, it floats away and disappears. Laptops, scientific equipment, your hair. Clothes, if not strapped in, float out open drawers. Pajamas are set adrift in sleep cabins to be caught like a wild thing at the end of the day. Objects unsecured scurry from bodies like hamsters frightened of hands. Meal packs must be clutched, guided firmly to mouth, lest you want to hunt for it like a caveman, chase it like prey. Funny how in space, the future, we must revert to our most primitive ways. Even your own perspiration floats off your face and stays in the air in front of you. Sweat droplets like clear marbles, even dead skin flakes float here, loose hairs, hangnails, everything your body loses during a day that usually falls to the floor unnoticed. On Earth, those little DNA speckles became carpet dust, swept, mopped, vacuumed away. Not so here. Your tiniest, dirtiest pieces float exposed before your eyes, demanding to be confronted. The cupola. A 360-degree viewing platform. It reminds the space poet of the large plastic bubbles that kids spy out of in sticky play places attached to fast food restaurants. Only instead of looking down and seeing rubber mats, stale French fries, cubby holes for tiny shoes, half-eaten chicken nuggets gone cold, mothers in ponytails, fathers on cell phones, there is nothing here to see but dark empty and this bowler hat of blue. And she can't hear anything. Not the smack of dirty hands in plastic tunnels, the soft tap of socked feet, the laughter more like screams. There are no whispered fights of new parents, no wet lip sounds from slimy kisses. She is supposed to write poems about this view for people on Earth, and they're thinking there must be so much to see out here where everything began. They're expecting black holes and meteoroid showers and space fires and stars dying and asteroids burning and nebulas birthing color and comet dust. Not this inky abandon, this big hollow black. The space poet cannot work with this out here where nothing is what you think it ought to be. Nothing moves, cries, shouts, rages, whimpers. Nothing pays its electric bill. Nothing is late for work. Nothing misses someone, nothing loves or lives or leaves. And what's poetic about that? I'm sort of scrolling as I read, trying to keep up with your comments. I appreciate you all being here. Holy, holy, holy. And this one is after Amber Sparks. The space poet remembers her first religious experience, 10 or 12 years old, raising her arms in the front row of the congregation, this close to speaking in tongues. And she remembers when she got older, even more experiences, which certainly felt religious. In the backseat of a car with the fire-haired girl, try touching me here. And later, their apartment together, 1 bedroom, 2 beds. Listen, you have to call me your roommate, okay? And late at night, crammed in 1 twin-size bed, scoot over, put your arms around me. Oh, I've missed you. And Sunday morning worship can wait as long as I'm sleeping in your arms. She told her parents, her pastor, the girl with starfire hair who begged her not to go, then called her a coward and threw her things out the 3rd floor window, all the same lie. She was coming up here to be closer to God. She knew he was on Earth, as close as a neighbor, as regular a visitor as her closest cousin, her favorite aunt, her grandmother down the street. He was present at every meal, invited to every holiday, the honored guest of every sticky summer family reunion. But she doubts now he is here, nowhere near the station the size of a football field, with a maximum occupancy of less than 10, not in the test tubes or the beakers, not outside the viewing area, not in space all disappointing dark, not here, where she has never been higher, yet never farther from heaven, even though at 250 miles above the earth, one might think they should be getting close. Microgravity, part 3. The space poet feels a little, well, ripped off. In this place that is not at all like a spaceship, not at all like clean corridors and well-lit hallways where one might feel big and tall on the edge of the universe where anything could happen and does. Instead, it's all smushed in two small spaces crowded next to wires and wires and wires and floating nowhere. Slithering through doorways like gerbils in a tunnel, rats in a tube. And she is, how do you say it, disappointed. Do you ever feel like maybe Star Trek lied to you? She asks Augie, because Kirk runs from the bridge to the infirmary on feet that slam against steel, but Augie has to be leashed to his own notebook. But Augie clutches his chest and says, shut your mouth. But it's too late. The spaceboat is already thinking about it. The lies, like the one that says the show is diverse because it has people of color on the bridge, but Sulu and Yahara are not allowed to have Asian and Black identities because race is supposed to have been erased in the 23rd century and everything is European now. But diversity isn't the same as race normativity. And there was the little matter of Kirk kissing Yahara as the milestone first interracial kiss on TV, but maybe time has forgotten that they kiss not out of passion, but because an alien race has taken over their minds and forces Kirk to kiss Yahara. And actually, if you watch that scene, their lips never actually touch before the camera pans away. So their mouths are just hovering an inch closer and then closer, then abandoned, left like that, never to touch anything, unattached, almost like floating. I love Star Trek. No offense to Star Trek. Myths in the multiverse. The story of Aquarius in Greek legend is one about a boy, isn't it always? Young and strong and so, so beautiful, perhaps the most beautiful in all of Troy, who was noticed by Zeus for this beauty and nothing else. And it is a story, too, of contradictions. In some versions, Zeus sends an eagle to grab the boy and carry him to Olympus. In some, it is Zeus himself, disguised as an eagle. And either way, Zeus makes the boy his servant, slave, his personal cupbearer tasked to bring drink to Zeus whenever he desires. And here, the story differs again. In some, the boy refuses to stay a slave and pours out all the water from the cup in defiance, causing rain for days and days on earth until the whole world floods. And in some stories, the boy is not a rebel at all, just a kid who notices Earth's people's need for water and pleads for Zeus to be allowed to help and obtains permission. And this is not even to mention the other non-Greek myths about a great flood, Noah and Gongon and Gilgamesh, or the Berenstain Bears and Nelson Mandela, and the thing about bologna and peanut butter and Fruit Loops. Which is why the space poet is not too surprised to learn about a cold spot in the sky that some scientists have called a bruise left over from an ancient collision with another universe, an otherwise unexplainable blemish in the Eridanus constellation, which itself is named after a river whose waters were once believed to flow from Aquarius itself, whose winding and twisty paths seem well suited as a home for multitudes. Just like Disney's Pocahontas said, you can't step in the same river twice, which means maybe you also can't live in the same universe twice. So maybe, oh maybe, somewhere, if she is lucky, there is a here adjacent place, somewhere the space poet could kiss someone she loved, who loved her back, and really take her time with it. What you and me have in common with tardigrades. So tardigrades are these like weird little microscopic organisms that are basically indestructible. First freezing, now boiling, no water, no oxygen for years, it doesn't matter. You and me have adapted to live, and they do it together. On dandelions the size of planets, you and me roam the trees, moss piglets, tardigrada, slow walkers. And it is there that they live and love. Me envies the bees their wings, visiting like spaceships. Later, when the world grows smaller, me can feel it. The yellow petals transforming into seed heads, no more room to wander. You feels cozier, safer, not me. Me dreams of new skies, of mountaintops like unknown galaxies, ice caps wild as asteroids, ocean floors immense as black space, ever expanding. So is me. Me watches storms blow away dandelion fluff, wisps in the wind, wishes me were on one. One day, you thinks me will be. You shouldn't begrudge me her dreams. You and me can survive anything without anything, even, it seems, each other. God's view is a blind bird's eye. In college, the space poet, barely a poet on anything, used to kill the time between classes in the geology building, which was not her major or department, because of the large rotating globe 6 foot in diameter and taller than she was, which was instilled in the center of the lobby. She sat on the floor with her back to a cold tile wall and her knees pulled to her chest, writing poems in her notebook with a pencil and staring at the globe the way an 18-year-old wannabe traveler who has never left the country always stares at maps. Which is what she was doing the first time she met the blood-haired girl who would one day pierce her nose, but who hadn't yet. The girl who towered over the space poet the same way the globe did, who tossed her backpack next to the space poet and used it for a seat. The girl who asked her, "What are you doing?" The space poet had dreamed of being asked this question. Though she had hoped it would be the cute boy with freckles on the back of his neck in her linguistics class to ask, and had prepared her answer. She had long wanted to tell someone how she loves this globe, how it is able to cure any ailment by making her feel invisible and seen in equal measures, how she can stand in front of this globe and press her belly button into the velvet rope around it and reach out her arms and put her finger on her country and watch it all disappear behind her thumb. So small and insignificant on this globe she couldn't even put her arms around. And she wanted to tell someone that other times she could climb the stairs behind her and look down at the top of the globe, always making its same slow circle. And even way above it, she could look down and read the names on every country. And she thought that maybe God was like that too, that no matter how small you felt, how easily covered, someone way up high would see you. Now in the cupola, the space poet stares out over Earth like she used to do the globe, and she knows that some of the astronauts on this station could tell you, based on the city lights, what part of Earth they were looking down at. But she also knows that doesn't help them see the hurt of anyone below, and she is angry about that. Microgravity, Part 4. Bodies, too, must be secured, tethered to the space station wall, lest you slip, lest you miss a foot or handhold, lest you float to the ceiling and get stuck, lest you let go, lest you lose yourself. Water bearer. The TRAPPIST-1 planets are in the constellation of Aquarius, which, in addition to being the water-bearing sign, also happens to be the zodiac sign of the space poet's ex-lover, meaning that it's possible the planets are free thinkers, overthinkers, emotional thinkers, lovers of music. Let me take you to this concert tonight. It will be so wicked. Independent. Look, I'm not trying to marry you or anything, okay? I just want to take you on a date. In possession of a surprising temper. You know what? Forget this. I'm over trying to make it work with confused straight girls. Just go. It also means that the planets are probably great listeners and willing to give someone a second chance and a third chance and a fourth. It means they are spontaneous, witty, intelligent. And the planets are probably a little bit selfish, which is maybe why sometimes they tend to use their gravitational pull to pull their neighboring planets out of orbit in an effort to put their own orbit first. And they are, above all, loyal and want to cleave close to their loved ones, which is why the space poet is sure, all 7 planets are closer to their star than Mercury is to our sun. And maybe anyone who leaves the planets will spend their whole life regretting it, because they are potential water bearers, life givers, representing a viable, bright future, something to look forward to. But that is probably just a coincidence. This is my last one. Panspermia, or the opposite of loneliness. The idea that life exists throughout the universe, distributed by meteoroids, asteroids, planetoids, comets, the idea of seeds everywhere, propagating throughout the galaxies, planet hopping, dispersing, transporting. The idea that the building blocks of life originated in the solar nebula from which planets formed, that microscopic life forms become trapped in galaxy debris and survive the effects of space and collide, clinging to comets on planets with ideal conditions, and evolution begins. The idea that extraterrestrial life is not only plausible, but probable and inevitable. The idea that life and civilizations form in some distant corner of the observable universe, that their planets and solar systems one day explode, that their contents scatter to other faraway planets, and life starts over again. The idea that space is our home, is where we come from, is comprised of the same organic molecules inside its interstellar dust that resides in us. The idea that multitudes should not make us feel small or decentered or less significant than we already think we are, but instead should make us big, maybe even hopeful, that in some versions of this story, things turn out a little better. The idea that one day, even if it takes decades or more, some people will live on Earth, and some people will live in the TRAPPIST-1 galaxy, where the planets are so close to each other that 2 people could stand on neighboring worlds, and with the right telescope, they would be able to see the other one wave. The idea that one day, living in space will consist of more than a 6 to 12 month stay, the culmination of which means the return to the same life and problems. The idea that if this home planet doesn't work out, there will always be another chance here, amongst the stars. The idea that one day, a girl in one solar system could love a girl in another and not be afraid to say it. So even if it takes 40 light years for the message to get through, someone someday will hear her shout. Thank you all so much. That is my reading. So I was told to kill some time. Before the questions started coming in. I am taking questions. We have time for a Q&A. So if you type your question in the comment box, it will appear on my screen, but there's a slight delay. So I'm just supposed to sort of chatter until questions come. I do think that some people had typed questions while I was reading though, so I'm gonna sort of look through your comments while I wait for your new comments. Yeah, lots of Ohio stuff here. I think some of my Miami University friends are here, which I'm so excited that you are. I did my undergrad at Miami University. And that globe you might recognize. It's not there anymore, but it was awesome. Trekkie, Ohio, mind meld. Okay, so somebody's asking me, I wonder where you got the poetry. Did you write it? Or was it sent in by other authors on the space theme? So I wrote this, I have epigraphs thanking Amber Sparks for her inspiration. She wrote a story called The Janitor in Space. And I had to do a lot of research about what it was like to live on the International Space Station. So I followed a lot of astronauts on Twitter and I read a lot of their blogs and stuff, but which is where I got the factual aspects of it. But I'm the one that wrote the actual poems. And so they're all connected in that way. Some of you are writing me with nice words. Thank you. That's so kind. So I'm gonna wait and see if more questions will come in. I was told that it takes longer even than you think it should take, even after they tell you it takes a long time. So I'm gonna jabber on for a while before I say goodbye in case you guys are writing questions and they're just not appearing. My cat just came into the room. Oh, Anna just asked me, are you still writing on space? I am not writing on space so much. Hold on, I have a visitor for all of you. He's complaining. This is my cat, gentlemen. He's wonderful. And he's complaining for his dinner. But yes, so Anna said, are you still writing on space? So not currently. I wrote a lot when I was working on the space poet. I was working on a manuscript, a short story collection, and they are all space themed. So I have a lot of fiction that is set either in space or about space. Some of it is pretty straight up sci-fi, like kids living on a spaceship, and some of it is more just sort of like loosely inspired by people who like space, and it's more realist. But these days, that was when I did my MA at the University of Cincinnati about 2 years ago. That was when I was writing a lot about space. These days I'm writing still magical stuff, still science fiction, but not so much space themed. Okay, so let's see. Nikki is asking me, do you have a chapbook of these pieces out? The feed froze for me at the beginning, so I didn't quite hear if they were from the book Manuscript in Progress. So I actually didn't say if it was. I probably should have, so thank you for asking. So excerpts of this story / poems are in Black Warrior Review, and it is now a chapbook. It's about 30 pages. It is not out. It's submitted, it's under submission at different places, but it hasn't been accepted anywhere yet. So trust me, y'all will be like definitely hearing about it if it ever does get picked up. Another question from Anna, have you written about spacey themed settings like this before, or was this the first time? So I think I sort of briefly answered that, but I can talk a little bit more. So my MA was at the University of Cincinnati, and I wrote an entire collection about space. But this one, the Space Poet, is the first one that was like actually about like NASA and like what it was like to like live in space in real life. Like I've never been in the International Space Station. I've never talked to astronauts who have been up there. So no one has ever like read my chapbook and been like, actually everything you said is a lie. But like it should be pretty true. I did a lot of reading. And like I write a lot about space in like ways that are made up, right? Like science fiction sort of stuff. Like obviously I'm a big Star Trek fan, where I just like make up the rules. But this is the first time that I was like, okay, people like actually live in space right now. They're living up there. This isn't science fiction, it's real. So like what's it like to live up there? And the Space Poet was my first and only since story about just like the realities of living in space. Like I was reading somewhere that like they finished the International Space Station in 2000. And people like there has been at least a few people up there every single day since the day it opened. So like we have been like human beings have been living in space every day since the year 2000, which is incredible. It doesn't feel real. So I love it when science fiction suddenly becomes realism. Like we're on our way. It's really bizarre. Okay, another question is coming in. Thank you guys so much. This is really awesome. So this says, how familiar with Augie and the Space Poet did you have to get in terms of characterization and development of them as characters? So that's a great question. This story obviously doesn't have, it's not written like a traditional story. It doesn't have a lot of scenes. It's mostly like monologue, it's mostly exposition. And so like that allowed me not to do a lot of exploring about like who is Augie, who is the Space Poet. And there are other characters, there are other astronauts that don't appear in this excerpt that I read, but that are in the chapbook collection as a whole. And like Augie and the Space Poet are definitely the ones that are developed the most. Their voices came pretty naturally, especially the Space Poets, because even though it's third person, it's written entirely close third, like from her point of view. And so hers came kind of naturally, just like this frustration with space and this like sadness from being heartbroken and this fear, you know, of not being what she was told to be always, and then going up to space and finding out that space isn't what she was told it was either. Came pretty easily, you know, every single time I wrote a new vignette, I felt like I knew her a little bit more. And Augie existed, you know, you can't just send a person up there or a character in any story. You can't just have it's tempting. I'm gonna say that you can't, but like how many times have I tried to just like have a character alone on the page brooding, and it became necessary very early on to have her someone to talk to, even just a few lines and a couple of poems. And that's where Augie came in as just this like less brooding, like astronaut that just like loves science and loves space and is like super glad to be here. Right, like the space poet is sort of like Star Trek is amazing, I get that, but like also there are all these problems about the show and what we're doing up here, and Augie's like, shut your mouth, this place is amazing and Star Trek is amazing. So I didn't do a lot of like sketching before I started writing, like about who these characters are, but like as I was writing each vignette, I was like, these voices just sort of came, and then the more vignettes I wrote, the more familiar with their voices I got. You know, and then there are like 30 of these vignettes, so I got, especially the space poet who's in every single one, I got pretty familiar with their voices at the end. I could ramble on for a long time. I'm not actually sure if I'm answering questions except just talking, but that's fine. So no questions have come in since that one. I feel like I talked for a hot second. I don't want to rush everyone out the door though, so I will give it just a few more minutes to see if anybody else comes in. You should all follow astronauts on Twitter if you don't, because it's really weird what they do. It's weird that they live in space every day. And I go to the University of Tennessee now. It's where I get where I'm getting my MFA. And Margaret Lazarus Dean is here, and she writes a lot about space in a way that is way more official than me. Like she's interviewed Scott Kelly and like wrote his book and all of that, and actually like talked to astronauts while they were on the space station, which is just wild. But she told me that they're like growing plants now up there. Like I'm telling you, like that's incredible. The future is happening right now. Everyone who ever was like science fiction is fake can take it back, because it's not, it's real, it's happening. Let's see, it looks like, oh, thanks for sharing your, well, thank you. Thanks for being here. I don't know how long to wait. I don't want to be like, bye now, if there are like questions that just haven't like made it through the ether to me, but I also don't want to just sit here and metaphorically look at you. I guess it's not metaphorical. If we're done. Let's see, we've got comments coming in. Let's see if there are questions. Okay, it's Anna saying thank you so much. I'm going to take that as my sign that we've probably made it. So thank you so much to Poets in Pajamas, and thank you to Anna for help putting this together and like being such a great promoter and great resource while we were coming up with this. This was super fun. This was super amazing. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have the great rest of your night. This is the best way to do readings, I think. Nobody left their house and we're all already ready to get in bed. I love it. Thank you so much. Have a great night. I really appreciate you being here. Bye.